little sheep among the herd would turn their head or say a word, cause they were all too busy begging for the shears, begging for the muzzle, happy just to guzzle, feed, and watch a screen for all their years. Man, to each his own, can't afford a home, but they'll let you have your cozy little ecosphere. Where there among your own devices you can break the seventh seal, overthrow the oracles and slay the seer. All the tomes were burned and all the lips were seared. Shut your eyes and all our lives just disappear. Now blink 'em twice. Welcome to your ecosphere.
When you are not with where majority of Americans are, then, you know, that is extreme. That is an extreme way of thinking.
Hello there.
Hello. Welcome. That worked? Okay.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah.
We want to have just an off-the-cuff chat between you and me. Us. We want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
Who are these people?
It's us. We're these people.
I love that intro. I love that intro so much.
I'm here with a different co-host this time, Oz LaFave.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me on.
Friend of the show, DJ Joe Nice. How are you, friend?
What's good? And you hear Nick say this all the time. The United States is the most propagandized country in the world.
We are so fucked, you guys. Again, I'm sorry for being cynical, but seriously, we're fucked. We are fucked. We are well and truly fucking fucked.
Just appreciate all the work that you do and the platforms that you all are providing.
Hey, you. Doing good. How are you guys doing?
And as independent media, we have a responsibility to be, we don't hide our bias, obviously, but we must stay true to the facts.
What's up, Pam?
Cheers and salutations. Smoke them if you got them.
But I am here with a man that I've been waiting to talk to for the last couple of years, Nico House.
As an educator, what I would suggest is that, first of all, podcasts like these are made.
So you need to be an example for the people and for the future, knowing that your words can actually change the future.
What do you feel? What would Kwame Ture feel we would have to do?
Well, politics is every day of every minute. You have to be aware of what's going on. Not voting on one day, so the vote has never meant anything. So I'm not a Democrat.
See, I would call that guy the Black Obama.
No. The issues that we talk about, listen to us.
As always, kids, labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
In news.
In news. We're here with In News. What's up, Care Bear? My co-host as always, Collin Radix-Carter, and special guest with us this evening, Jose Vega. How are you, Jose?
That was a really good intro. I wasn't sure when it started. I thought, wow, we got Savvy on and we got Jay on and we got I thought we had everybody on. I was like, what?
Oh yeah, that was new for you. It's been cooking for a while, but I think we released it 2 months ago,
something like that. Yeah, we've had a few shows with it.
Something like that. Point. So so definitely since you were on last, but it's good to have you again, Jose. And shout out to everyone else in the chat. Thank you guys for being here. Once again, we know that you probably would prefer being with other people who are streaming at the moment, but we're very happy that you guys are with us. So we thank you. Per usual, do the thing, like, share, subscribe. YouTube does its ish as far as not promoting our content at all. So the way we get to promote our content is you guys, and you guys do a great job of that. So thank you. Appreciate it. At minimum, share our mess. If you feel inclined to give us any financial contributions towards helping us grow and doing all the stuff that we're doing on here to support the people who tirelessly do this work every week. As we say, take care of your families, take care of yourselves financially first, take care of your communities before you consider giving to us, but anything you're able to give will be helpful. And speaking of, Jose, you've actually have somewhat of a little financial adventure that some of our community probably may like to have, which we'll talk to you about, and you can explain a little bit more in terms of that in a few minutes.
Sure.
But yeah, should we first share what we have, Reef?
Which we don't know how strapped for time you are, Jose, but we definitely want you to get at least the first two out of the way. You're welcome to day after or whatever, but you know, we got you versus AOC. We'll see who wins that one. I think I already know who myself, but and you were recently outside AMC Theater giving people some flyers and stuff, and we'll get into some of that and the background behind Oppenheimer and some of the stuff that they missed out on. Anyway, Collin, what do you got?
So the biggest story from yesterday, and I'm sure you guys are probably well aware of this, and now especially if you've been watching How Do We Miss Out with Indian Reef, you guys know about this. They especially been following the UPS Teamsters impending strike. They reached an agreement yesterday, and everyone, including myself, was a little excited over it. And we formally at INN have to kind of apologize a little bit, because while I want to get this with enough nuance as possible, while obviously, you know, we want there, at least within this agreement, for there to be a fair deal for workers and all the things, we have to kind of take a step back a little bit in terms of, is this contract really beneficial for the workers? So we're going to go into that.
Is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
Thanks. So we are going to give. So we have to make some changes to this not at the last minute, but Reef, Indy, and I had quite a talk about all of this earlier. So we made some additions. Hopefully,
I hope you can brief me on it, because I haven't kept up too much. I've been in the street every day this week, but
right.
I heard this is what I heard, and then you can correct me. I heard that there are some like DSA people trying to take over the Amazon labor union thing, and they're trying to like democratize it or something, and they're trying to take it away from Chris Smalls.
Well, there's more on that. We won't even get into Chris Smalls. We're gonna do a special on that, but UPS is kind of, you know, its union isn't doing perfect here, but
right. Oh, this is the UPS. Okay, I see.
This is UPS. Yeah. So, but
Chris Smalls is a whole different story. There's a lot of problems there if you've been paying attention, but.
Okay, no, the UPS thing, AOC's been like backing them up, right? Like,
she jumped on acting like she did some shit. You know, so.
But yeah, we're going to talk about because the contract may not be as great as what has been reported, so we're going to go into that a little bit. And then to end our night, we actually have a book report, or book review, rather. And Jose, this might be interesting since we know how much of an anti-imperialist you are, and you might want to get this take on this, but this is a book that came out recently, War Made Invisible. So could be a good summary for some of you, for those who are into that. So we're going to, there was an article that was written about this book. I thought it seemed a little interesting in light of our, our industry, military industrial complex ramping up. So could be a good read for some of you if you're interested. So we'll go into that as our last segment tonight. Yeah, so
you ready for this story?
Yeah, I am actually. So
I wanted to bring you on, Jose, because I know you've been doing some stuff around AOC a little bit that I've seen. I'm sure you've seen this going around, this article from the New York Mag, particularly their intelligencer area. And we put the description to the article in chat. I suggest people actually read it all the way through. It's a bit wordy, so I chose some select parts. But I think they're important because I think it's this is New York Mag, who we know is not the best publication as far as where they align politically. They've come at plenty of our friends for takes similar to this about 2-3 years ago. So but it feels like they're starting to figure it out, kind of. But we'll get into it. So AOC's recent appearance on the Pod Save America podcast had, for me, particularly, who is it? Freddie deBoer. The feeling of a final disappointment. The kind that's a little sad, but brings a set of quixotic hopes to a close. AOC appeared on the popular Crooked Media show to announce her endorsement of Joe Biden for president in the 2024 election. To deliver that particular endorsement while appearing on that particular podcast where former Obama admin staffers defined the limits of acceptable left-of-center opinion. Great summary of PodSave. Was to send a very deliberate message. It was AOC's last kiss-off to the radicals who had supported her, voted for her, donated to her campaign, and made her unusually famous in American politics, the beneficiary of a whole unique cult of personality that is now starting to come undone. An endorsement of a sitting president, after all, doesn't have to be a ceremonial affair. Ocasio-Cortez could have sent out a tweet and making her announcement in a forum where the hosts were saying that a vote for anyone but Joe Biden was a vote for Donald Trump, which we know is bullshit. A distillation of the hollow, "we're not Trump" message that Democrats have been loudly pushing for the past 7 years. AOC was putting a bow on a half-decade-long drift from radical outsider to establishment liberal. Since taking office in 2019, she has deferred to party leadership again and again on the issues that matter, even as she has made token gestures of resistance to solidify the illusion that she is a gadfly, and increasingly she seems stung by criticism from the left to the point where she appears ready to simply embrace her party and its politics with open arms. I feel like some of that criticism is personally because of Jose. I blame you, Jose, for that criticism. In 2021, with a publication of DSA, Ocasio-Cortez attacked left critics of the Biden admin on identitarian grounds. We really have to ask ourselves, what is the message that you are sending to your black and brown and undocumented members of your community, to your friends, when you say nothing has changed? This is a stark example of what socialist critics have accused Democrats of doing for years, that they forbid criticism and enforce loyalty to the party through vague accusations of racism and references to people of color and other marginalized groups. Yet during the very period in which she gave that interview, the Biden admin has been busily deporting tens of thousands of undocumented immigrants, almost all of them black and brown. The two images of AOC, right? The one, her weeping outside of the immigration camp, right? Before she won an election, dressed in white, she wails in protests of kids in cages, right?
I remember that.
Treatment of migrants at the border is indeed indefensible, right? The trouble lies in what didn't happen next. When Biden took office in 2020, American immigration policy did not meaningfully change. It did, Collin covered it, it went for the worse. So this is often chalked up to COVID-era restrictions, but those restrictions are long gone, and Democrats have not made significant changes to Trump's border policy. There are literally still kids in cages. So why isn't Ocasio-Cortez at the border again, protesting her country's president? Second image is her at the Met Gala, right? Where her eat the rich dress, a bit depressing, but not at all surprising to see the champion of the working class at an event in which celebrities wandered around unmasked while their mini servants dutifully wore masks to prevent the spread of COVID. Politicians, even lefty politicians, go to fancy events and hobnob with the ruling class. It's a fact of life. But Ocasio-Cortez tried to have it both ways. She wore white again, this time a dress emblazoned with the words "Tax the Rich" in bright red, and this made her opportunity to rub shoulders with the 1%, a matter of direct hypocrisy. It's one thing to go to the party, it's another to blare out a message that you disapprove of the party while you're there. If there is a key to AOC's political persona, it lies between these two poles. The former betrays the fundamental moral corruption of partisanship. It compels people to care about political issues precisely to the degree that those issues are convenient for the party. Losing interest in our immoral immigration system after Biden's election is exactly the sort of thing that AOC's rabid fans once said she would never do. The latter not only sees AOC transported from outside the gates to inside the most elite of venues, it also showcases AOC's increasingly half-hearted attempts to cover up her genuine predilections with the most superficial of symbolic acts, like appearing on plenty of magazines that Chris Smalls also appears on. What? I'm sorry, I'll continue. Take, for example, the chronic mistreatment of workers in our railway system that contributed to the derailment of subsequent air crisis in East Palestine. What did AOC do here? I forget. What did she do? She voted to forbid them from striking. I think that's what happened. Isn't that what happened? It's hard to imagine a clearer example of her overall political orientation. Right. The railroad workers, they tried to say, didn't they try to say she would really imagine supporting what the workers wanted? She tried to play it off on them, and they responded, nope. Essentially, Railroad Workers United quickly clarified that this defense was an act of remarkable dishonesty. That's what they said. And she's more than willing to jump on board a labor issue, which we'll get to later tonight, when it suits her. Less surprising, but just as damning, has been Ocasio-Cortez's meek attitude towards Biden foreign policy, which is why Jose here is tonight. The Israeli occupation of Palestine is perhaps where AOC's positions have been most indefensible, more self-parodic. She has mixed at times impressive rhetoric with total inconsistency as a legislator on the campaign trail in 2018. You remember this talk about like her Iron Dome present vote? You remember that?
Yeah, she cried, because Nancy Pelosi told her to switch her vote to present.
Yeah, oh, she cried. Oh, I'm so sorry.
There's always the macro, and then there's the micro.
So the macro situation is this: establishment Democrats and their liberal media mouthpieces expect total electoral loyalty from leftists while offering us little in return. As the Pod Save America crew demonstrated, the party establishment barely attempts to hide its contempt for its leftmost flank, but as the consistency of third-party voting in presidential elections so, the tactic of shaming voters has limited effectiveness. I don't think that Nader or Jill Stein cost the Democrats' presidential election. I think Al Gore and Hillary Clinton were terrible candidates who ran incompetent campaigns. But if you do think lefties voting third party determines the outcome of national elections, perhaps at some point you might actually consider giving those lefties something to vote for. Wouldn't that be nice?
Pokemon, go to the polls.
So, yeah. Anyway, so this is that article. Here's Nick talking about it. All these people who used to get mad at me for bashing AOC are now forced to admit what we've been saying for years now. Sad thing is, these democratic socialist types will never apologize for attacking us for telling the truth about AOC before it was cool. I remember Misty here. I've already accepted all the apologies I will never get. Savvy Sabs also weighed in. I remember when the outlet praised AOC. Meanwhile, some of us tried to warn you that she was a careerist. Better late than never. Also, like some other people we know. It's interesting that they'd even publish this article and go after the media darling, says Jose Vega. Who's that guy? Yeah. I wonder. Speaking of that guy, my friends and I visited AOC in her Bronx office to tell her We don't want more warmongers in Congress. She endorsed Biden the same day he sent cluster bombs to Ukraine. She is weak-willed, spineless, phony, and an upholder of the war establishment. So we got her a gift. And here's the gift you brought her. If I remember correct.
Hi, everyone. My Twitter friends and followers. You already know the deal. We're back at it again. We got the posters printed, and we decided to
Hello, YouTube?
visit our favorite congresswoman.
You got to get that fiber optic.
AOC.
Supposedly, I got it.
Just down the we're back at it again. We got the posters printed, and we decided to visit our favorite congresswoman, AOC, who relocated her office just down the block from where I live. I'm a proud Bronx resident, and we actually wanted to deliver both a gift for her, one of the posters, because we believe that this perfectly encapsulates what her position in Congress has become, establishment. And we were going to deliver a message, if not to her staff. I'm sure she's probably not here herself physically, but I'm sure her staff is in there, and we've rung the bell 3 times now to get in. They have a little camera thing here, so I'm sure they don't want to let us in. And, you know, maybe that's a little embarrassing for them. The message we were going to deliver to the staff for AOC is that every single person that's standing behind me here and the person behind the camera once believed in AOC as an anti-establishment figure. Okay, we once believed that she would stand up against cluster bombs being sent to another country. We once believed that she would be an anti-war congressperson. And now she endorsed Biden on the same day that he announced he was going to send cluster bombs to Ukraine. So, to commemorate our coming here and not, being able to deliver our gift, we're actually going to leave her a gift. So, we're going to do 2 gifts here. We're going to do everything on this. So, we'll just,
slide that under the door.
Yeah.
Good for you, bro.
Yeah. That
Put it
was
up
fun.
high
This was
so
a
she
fun
can't
thing to
reach
do.
it. Because she's like, what, 5'2" in heels? Something like that? How tall is she?
Well, we'll see if he... I'm sure she got it about that. Yeah.
She could reach that one.
You should point to
Yeah.
the address so anybody in the area.
So, 6 stuff. That's good enough. Yeah.
YouTube, what are you doing to me?
People should come and, talk to their congressperson or their staff and let them know how they feel about the Ukrainian war, let them know how they feel about cluster bombs, and demand that AOC either fight for us or get the hell out of our way. And that's what we're here to do and send the message. So stay.
Well, did you feel bienvenido while you were there? Where you felt super bienvenido?
It's so funny actually that I found that office because I was actually looking for Richie Torres's office because I was doing something completely different. There was a exhibit here at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. We keep AOC in the basement. That's funny. I was doing something. They were doing an event which is very important for understanding where Black history comes from. It was an Arthur Schomburg / Juan de Perea exhibit.
Right.
And I wanted to contact my congressman, who's an asshole. His name's Richie Torres. But I thought, okay, well, this event supersedes what I think of him. And if he can get an email blast to his constituents who are Afro-Latino, because Juan de Perea was Afro-Latino, and so was Arthur Schomburg, which this exhibit's about, and it's free for New Yorkers. They need to go see this. And if he can, it's a positive PR move. You know what's funny? His office did respond to me. AOC's office did not respond to me. They completely ignored me, even after I sent it in on another email too, just as a concerned constituent wanting to spread Afro-Latino history and awareness. But irregardless of all that, that's how I found the office. It turns out that she took over Richie Torres' old office because of redistricting or something. What I want to get to, though, with this entire story is that there's something interesting going on in the Democratic Party. There's something bigger happening here. because you can't see this as a singularity. You have to see. Sorry if you hear my cat meowing in the back. He likes to play with me at this time, but that's why he's like wants my attention. But
bring the cat on. Get us the music, please.
All right, I'll try and I've been trying to like throw treats at him to come play with me, but he's adamant he wants to play. Anyway, there's something bigger going on here. You can't see it as a singularity because I do think it interesting that the media would then put this out in a mainstream article like this. What's going on? Well, Jamal Bowman has been challenged.
Yes.
There's two IPAC candidates actually who are going to go after. There's one already officially declared who's like ready to challenge Bowman for the primary. Then there's another one who's the Westchester County executive. I keep telling people this. New York State Dems are a completely different breed, okay, than any other Democrat in the country because most of the powerful congressmen are here. Chuck Schumer is here. He's like one of the biggest senators right now. He's the Democratic Party fundraiser, the number one guy. It's also where Wall Street is, right? New York State Dems have the most controlled part of New York. So they're doing a move here. Is it simply on Israel? I don't know. But it's important to take note, that everybody take note about this, because they put this article out as rumors are circulating that Bowman is going to be challenged. We know one guy is. The other guy is the Westchester Executive County, who everybody likes in his district, apparently. There are people who are happy about the change. That this, here you go, Ozzy. There's a treat. There are Westchester. There are people who are happy that Jamal Bowman is going to be challenged. I do believe elections may not be. How do I keep this YouTube friendly?
No, we can say that now. They changed it. We can say they're rigged. Okay. Things are rigged. It's okay. They're rigged.
Yeah, they are rigged. They're trying to do something here. They are going to eat themselves alive. In other words, they have no problem throwing the progressives under the bus now.
Oh, no,
you know why? Because they are going to a hardcore pivot now. All right, you see it with the Ukraine war. They have no intention of slowing down. Because you see it with
Putin's a madman.
Yeah, you see it with the fact that the Democrat cities that are all, I mean, it's Republican cities too, but you see it the fact that all of America is collapsing right now. They have no intention of solving it, right? So the question that should be asked is like, why are they throwing the progressives under the bus here? I think Israel is definitely a big one, right? Because I think virtually 95% of the Congress is all in favor of Israel getting all the money they want and all the Iron Dome they want. So I'm sure that plays a big role in it.
Well, and their also, money they get from Pfizer and Moderna and stuff that they've been happening over there, as well as their NATO support that Israel is willing to give, you know? So, and they don't mind Israel bombing Syria. They're okay with that. That's a bonus, you know? So,
yeah. I've been like knee deep in like the whole Israel thing because I really want to understand it because I'm awfully disappointed in RFK Jr.
As are we.
And I also had some people on my what?
As are we.
Oh, as a view.
Yeah.
I had some guys on my show on Independent News Network who were actually pro-Israeli, and they were giving me points that I couldn't counter, and it made me understand what I actually don't know when it comes to Israel. So it wouldn't be right for me to say, well, you're wrong because, well, I don't know why you're wrong, but, you know. And so it taught me that I need to sharpen my axe more when it comes to understanding issues. And I actually appreciated them coming on because it taught me what other people actually think when it comes to being pro-Israeli. Like, you know.
I'm just curious if you don't mind sharing, what did they tell you?
Oh, sure. For example, the Golan Heights, which belongs to Syria, the Israelis actually occupy that, and it's technically an illegal occupation because it's not their territory, it's Syrian territory. And then they said, well, actually, the Golan Heights is in an elevated position just above the capital of Israel, and Hamas was shooting rockets into that location where they were just going to, start vaporizing Israeli citizens.
Iron Dome protection system that should keep them from Syrian rockets that we pay millions and millions of dollars for. Well,
that's what yeah, that's why they say that justifies the Iron Dome. And then it also says, it's a strategic position. And the Syrians didn't want to negotiate for there to not be rockets thrown into Israel. And that's what they said. And I didn't know how true that was or not true. I didn't know to what extent,
you should,
it's not that I agree with it. It's just, I just didn't know, you know what I'm saying?
Bealey
I
does pretty well with this stuff. She's living in Syria right now. I do believe. I think Damascus, to be specific, which has been getting bombed recently. But she's also done Palestine stuff forever, as well as Medhurst. Medhurst is a big Palestine supporter on this stuff. They're probably good to talk to. Vanessa.
Well,
Vanessa wrote a story not that recently that we covered about them poisoning the water of Palestinian towns and
God.
Yeah, dude. There's a whole. The Nakba is a genocidal thing in general, like literally, So it's kind of
Jesus.
It gets a little iffy with stuff, but they literally poison the water supply of particular places. That they said that they complained about it because but yeah. Anyway, you got something to add, Collin?
Whoa.
Yeah, I'm just also curious. Did you or these people that you talked about mention anything about Zionism at all? Did that come up in your conversation?
Yeah. What was it that he said? Well, I said, Zionism in the 80s was classified as a form of racism by the UN. So the UN had a majority resolution, and I asked him what his response to that was. And he said something like, well, how do you define Zionism? Do you define Zionism by, converting people to Jews? Because that's not what the Israelis want. It's that they just want, to live in peace and harmony, and that it's the Palestinian. Here's what he said that kind of bothered me. And this is something I should have challenged. He said that if the Palestinians put their weapons down, there would be peace in the Middle East and nothing would happen.
If the
Israelis put their weapons, but he said if the Israelis put their weapons down, the Palestinians are just going to be bloodthirsty and murder every Israeli. So they can't put down their weapons. I didn't challenge the guy. People can watch it.
Right? Where have we heard that before?
People can watch the show. It's on my YouTube channel. It's actually age restricted. You have to sign in and then you have to confirm. Yeah. It was a good show because we didn't just talk about Israel. We talked about a whole lot of things and they were funny. But we're talking about Victoria Nuland, the Ukraine war. And that's another interesting thing is that some people they have their opinions on Israel that I don't agree with. But when you talk to them about Ukraine, they're like, oh yeah, no, it's a proxy war. It's totally a proxy war, and because I find that a lot in the street too, especially here in New York. I find people who might be okay with one issue or another. When I mean okay, they'll understand the history and the truth behind it, but they actually don't. But then they're really lacking in something else, right? So it's they don't have an overarching view of something. They might just be good on one or two things, but not on everything. So yeah.
I'll just say this kind of real quick.
Go ahead,
Reef.
No, I was just going to continue.
I'll just say this kind of quick to you, Jose. The issue, and actually we kind of talked about Zionism a little bit in our stream last week. I'll send you the clip afterward, or at least where we kind of talked about it a little bit. But I think generally in the space we need to have a better idea of what Zionism is. I think people talk about it, but not necessarily clearly define what it is. So, but I think there's kind of people associate Judaism with Zionism, which is not, they're two totally different things.
Yeah.
But the idea of Zionism is that it's tied to imperialism. The idea behind Zionism is back around the turn of the century, essentially the Zionist lobby, in order to retake what they believed was Palestine at the time, which they considered the Holy Land, which at the time was occupied by the Ottoman Empire. the Turks, they wanted that land back. So they appealed to the British, who at the time was the world empire at the time. They appealed to the British government to essentially overtake Israel. So Kwame Ture spoke about this years ago. And the idea that he brought up was, if something belongs to you, you don't appeal to the enemy in order to take it. So that's the issue with Zionism, is the idea that they use imperialism in order to take their land, essentially take their land back. So that's a very basic view of it. And I've said this just in terms of me, and this is a problem that I have with RFK. There have been a lot of people who have mentioned this to him, I'm fairly certain. And the fact that he's kind of doubled down on his
hardcore
in light of what people have told him regarding the Israel-Palestine conflict in order
unconditional support. I don't know how you can go more than that. And yet AIPAC is still going to come after him, just like they're doing with Jamal Bowman right now, even though Jamal Bowman is given everything they could ever want.
So it's the idea for me, that is a huge red flag to me in terms of, well, if they're going to basically bitch you out over that issue, then how easy would it be for them for another lobby or a certain corporation, assuming he was president, if they want something to basically shame him for him in order to do it? That's kind of like my stance on that. You know,
I was at that meeting last night he had with Rabbi Shmuley, and it was funny because one of the guys asked him, like, you know, Mr. RFK, I'm with you on the Ukrainian war and the proxy war and the stuff you're talking about with your uncle. That's all cool, but how can you support the Israeli lobby, man? They're the pro-war lobby, man. It's no different than the military-industrial complex. Do you support them because you're afraid of being called an anti-Semite? And then RFK Jr. is just looking there stone-faced and says, no. And it looked like he was going to say more. But then he just finishes by saying, that's not why I support Israel. And you could have interpreted that. It's like, oh, man, I wish we had really good playwrights or poets today, because you could have interpreted that as him saying, without saying, they have a gun to my head, and this is why I have to support Israel, right? Or, you know, my wife will divorce me if I don't, you know, I don't know. Like, that's what it kind of felt like his body language was telling me. Like, he wants to, like, it's not because he might actually believe what he says, or it's that they're threatening him with something. I don't know. Mossad works on the
I think we're not paying attention partially. And we all are. Like, we're not single issue voters. We pay attention to all of it. We may like you on one or two things, but if that's all you got and you're bad on everything else, then good luck. You know, as well as his takes on, you know, what did he say? I tweeted it out earlier. You know, I'm sure there's some good, a majority of the people at the CIA are good, patriotic, blah, 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 blah. It's like, I'm like, all right, my daughter-in-law was a member that she's real brave, and like, okay. You know, it just seems crazy. It seems like this lady 2.0, you know, in some respects.
Go. Now we're back to AOC. Yeah, I remember why I brought up Israel now. It was because my point to wrap up my point about AOC is that there's a concerted effort right now to go after the squad and throw them under the bus.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder, because these guys are heavily surveilled. Like, we know for a fact their text messages are being read. Everything's happening to them, you know. Were they planning on something to do something that might have actually... Because the only times we've ever seen the media go after Joe Biden is when Joe Biden has said something slightly competent on Ukraine, and then all of a sudden, hey, guess what? The Hunter Biden laptop stuff, that was not disinformation. That was real. It was all real. Yeah, man. Hunter Biden's cock out there. It's all real. This is the president's son. All of a sudden, Biden's like, anyway, we need to give Ukraine tons of more money. Like we only see the mainstream press speak out against the establishment when the person in the establishment is about to or is doing something that threatens the establishment in one way or another. Right. So I'm just curious, what was the squad planning on doing? Because they voted no on the cluster bombs thing. They voted with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and it wasn't much of a vote because they knew it was more symbolic. Which I wish they would be more vocal about this. But were they planning on something? Is that why this is coming out?
Or are they just weak bastards who have just basically capitulated and they never and they weren't liked anyway? Hakeem Jeffries has notorious, not now, because I'm sure he's realized or at least been talked to that he has to chill.
It's like those high school date movies. They've been sitting there trying to get at the cool kids table forever, and they end up showing up to the party and they get pranked and laughed at. It's that kind of stuff, so
to me, it's the idea of thinking that the squad at this point in their careers are planning something to kind of to jeopardize their positions in power. I don't think so.
You're probably right.
I just feel like I think it's just the idea of them being there. They never were liked to begin with. They were never wanted there. And they've been doing everything in their power to get rid of them, but get rid of them in a way that doesn't point fingers at the establishment directly, like, oh, they're intentionally, trying to get rid of the very people that a lot of people somewhat like. So, I wouldn't give them any credit at all for them trying something. Otherwise, they would have done it already, I would argue.
You have a good point.
And they've had plenty of opportunities to do something in terms of challenging the Democratic establishment all now. Like, they might now, because with the threat of Trump, they'll start talking progressive again. But that's just more virtualistic thing at this point. So
I think back to when AOC said, well, we like being in the minority because then we can fight harder, for things we want. Say, okay, so you only speak up when you can't pass the votes or for stuff you do. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
I wanted to shout out INN member BigMadCrab for making this artwork you used. Yeah. We appreciate that. So I have the link to the Etsy listing for people below if they want to support that. And go grab you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Go grab you a war poster. Does it come in blacklight velvet? Because I'm down.
I don't.
Like you used to get a Hot Topic. You know what I'm saying? That's what you should do one of these days.
I'll make
Jose.
a custom one for you.
You should go find like the poster section at like one of these places, like at Hot Topic or whatever, and just replace it with all crazy anti-war stuff. I'd be down for that. Just have people like, this poster's amazing. Like, just flip it through them.
I'm trying. I keep feeding ideas to Greg, and he needs to hurry up and make some more.
I agree.
Yeah, man.
Crab, you heard that? Get to it.
you had some good stuff out there. What is that? The Lego store? You got that out in front of?
No, that's just the store in the Bronx. The one on the left is in her office. The one on the right was just like some store in the Bronx that we were posting stuff at.
So,
that's in her district. Yeah.
Good for you. I'm sorry they didn't let you in and give you a couple of donuts and some coffee, like I'm sure they do the local cop that makes the rounds. But whatever. Next time, right?
I hope that that article that came out. What can you really do? Well, do you think this will turn her loyal base against her, or will it start like waking people up?
Well,
that's what I'm genuinely curious about.
I saw on Twitter already that people were like attacking this writer, and saying it's all just Met Gala bad and whatever. And someone was like, well, actually, no, it actually called out real policy decisions and, you know, her support for Iron Dome. And when she like, you know, and pretty much the article went on to say that the reason why people haven't made these questions is because it then would lead them to question other pariahs like Bernie Sanders or whatever, that these are all symbolic gestures that they get ever, right? You know, so versus actual, when they actually have the power to do something, whenever that comes up, they squander it and they throw it away. And they might have one that might symbolically vote yes on it. If you're going to make all these symbolic votes, be consistent. If your votes don't matter, full send. Like, any of it.
Go all in.
Right. Like, you know, if you're going to try to give us lip service, do that. You know, instead of trying to like
Claire Daly.
Yeah. Yep.
Or Mick Wallace. Like, those guys are like such a minority voice in the parliament. But like, they're always like so strong and vocal. Like, that's what we need in the Congress from anyone right now. And like, when it comes from unlikely places, we're like, why is Marjorie Taylor Greene better on Ukraine than AOC, right? Like, these things should not make sense, and they do make sense, right? Why is Matt Gaetz, a Republican from Florida who loves the military, saying we need to get our troops out of Syria? Why is he bringing those bills in and not the squad? Like, this is something the squad should be all over.
And partially because they understand that if you have to oppose the other party, right? And usually they don't. Most of the time, both parties are in lockstep. So that's why you see Ron DeSantis do things like culture war stuff. That's why you see, you know, it's nothing on economics or ending wars or making sure people get fed, clothed, housed. None of those things are on the party because that's not what they want, because it doesn't make their donors any money. So, you know, as long as they make their donors money, that's what they're doing. Everything else is theater. So, you know, but speaking of theater, we have, because we know we love to glorify particular atrocities. Oppenheimer has been out, new Christopher Nolan film. Did you actually watch it, Jose, while you were there? You step into the
I watched it twice. Yeah.
How much popcorn cost you? Way too much.
I'm an AMC Stubs member, man. I get free refills.
Nice. So did you see Barbie while you were there, or did you do the double?
No, I did not see Barbie.
Good for you. No. Even though I know you're a fan of Ryan Gosling, it's okay. You know? But anyway, so this is a report by Connor Eccles that I found through antiwar.com. They're showcasing responsible statecraft, which does some pretty good work. So he writes, what Oppenheimer leaves out, the 3-hour-long movie has gripping drama and important history, but ignores the first victims of the nuclear era. On July 16th, 1945, the world ended, or at least it seemed that way to residents of the Tularosa Basin in New Mexico. Unbeknownst to local civilians, J. Robert Oppenheimer had chosen their backyard as a proving ground for the world's first nuclear weapon. The explosion, which U.S. officials publicly claimed to be an accident at a local ammunition depot, tore through the morning sky, leaving a 40,000-foot tall cloud of radioactive debris that would cake the surrounding area with dust for days on end, and I'm sure years on end. This is the explosion, in case people were wondering what that looked like. That's a 40,000-foot tall tower of death.
Is that the Trinity test?
Yes, sir.
Is that the test they did?
Yep. High def redo. This next one is the one that
4K.
gets me. The close one, if we can get to it, whenever that happens. That one is always the crazy one. That is the air exploding inside that shockwave. You know, this is how nuclear weapons work. They make the air explode. That's what they do. That's how much energy they produce.
People become an open air oven. That's
people become the fuel. It ignites anything like in its wake. So yeah, super nice. And then on top of that, it leaves radioactive debris that then can affect the ecosystem for centuries, pretty much. Because, you know, radioactive tends to have a long half-life. That's why we're using these. So Tina Cordova, whose hometown of Tularosa lies just 45 miles from ground zero, remembers her grandmother's stories about wiping that infernal dust off every nook and cranny of her childhood home. No one knew what had happened quite yet, but they figured it must have been something special. After all, a local paper reported that the explosion was so bright that a blind woman had actually seen it. When the initial shock wore off, the 40,000 locals who lived within 50 miles of ground zero returned to their daily lives. 50 miles. They drank from cisterns full of radioactive debris, ate beef from cattle that had grazed on the dust for weeks on end, and breathed air full of tiny plutonium particles. Only later would the real impact become clear. Bernice Gutierrez, born just 8 days after Oppenheimer's Trinity test, moved from a small town near the blast site to Albuquerque, where she was 2 years old. Cancer followed her like a specter. Her great-grandfather died of stomach cancer in the early 1950s. She lost cousins to leukemia and pancreatic cancer. Her oldest son died in 2020 after a bout with pre-leukemia. Blood disorder. In total, 21 members of Gutierrez's family have had cancer, and 7 have died from it. We don't ask ourselves if we're going to get cancer, Gutierrez told RS. We asked ourselves when, because it just never ends. Oppenheimer, the latest film from famed director Christopher Nolan, is a 3-hour-long exploration of the dilettante, womanizer, communist sympathizer, and world historic genius behind the ultimate weapon. The movie, based on the book American Prometheus, delves deeply into Oppenheimer's psyche, from his struggles as a young student at Cambridge to his profound melancholy over the world he helped create. Yet nowhere in the film will viewers find an acknowledgement of the first victims of the nuclear era. Indeed, the movie repeats the myth that the bomb site was in a desolate area with nothing for 40 miles in either direction. This was not for lack of effort, according to Cordova, who leads an activist group called the Tularosa Basin Downwinders Consortium. Downwinders refers to those who live in the fallout zone of nuclear tests. So here you are, Jose, out in front of AMC Theater, and you're handing out flyers for what? This Humanity for Peace organization or event, I guess.
It's actually a coalition of like every organization around the world, every single one. But that wants to sign on. Not every organization in the world, but like, you know, ones that stand for peace and are anti-war and have agreed to sign on. And there's more logos. That's just the ones we could fit on the paper. So.
Yeah, you can throw ours into the mix probably. But here you are. Ooh, I can help this because you're in New York Wind, the New York Wind Tunnel. Let's try that.
We're out here in front of the AMC theaters with our Humanity for Peace leaflet. We also have a little message in the back for people who are here to see the Oppenheimer film. It's a very good film, and I urge everyone to watch it. But what we're doing is we want people who are going to see the film or have seen the film get this leaflet, because that audience of people who actually get something out of the film, which the main message is we shouldn't blow ourselves up, should be coming to the August 6th Humanity for Peace rally. And so we're out here organizing where the people are who are coming to see a politically conscious film about the end of the world through nuclear bombs, which is where we are right now. So please, if you can come to the UN on August 6th, please be sure to do so as we demonstrate to the world we want peace, not destruction.
Yep. So
I endorse that message.
You do. I'm running for president, and I endorse this message. But anyway, let me go back here, and then here, and then back here. Cool. Whenever that catches up, there we go. Oh. You also had your buddy Kyle was out there, right? I believe. Kynan.
All right, y'all. Today we're in front of AMC Lincoln Square, distributing our Humanity for Peace leaflet. It's going to be a rally on August 6th.
Man, Costco could have hooked you up with some color prints, huh?
And it's really prescient that this film was made today because people don't know about this danger, you know? They don't know the fact that we shouldn't have dropped the atomic bomb in 1945 because Eisenhower MacArthur knew it was militarily unnecessary and ushered an age where people are afraid of dying today. So we're out here. I'm with my friend Jose Vega and a bunch of other friends. People should come out here, come to our rally. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Thoughts so far, guys?
I mean, this is what you're kind of promoting, the idea of like, if we continue to escalate with Ukraine, we're going to see some of those bombs. And it wouldn't be too shocking at this point if we have one of those bombs set off here in this country.
Exactly.
So, so I feel like it's almost kind of the cognitive dissonance of people watching this movie and them saying they like it, but not necessarily making the connection that might happen to us if we're not careful. And so, like people are like, yeah, Russia bad and like all this kind of stuff. That's fine. Well, not fine, but yeah, we know like I go back and forth, but like, but Putin's his own guy or
Russian
whatever.
Scum!
But we have to first account for our own leadership and our own government in our own country first before we start talking about, of other countries. And the fact that we've been very trigger happy in like pursuing the idea of escalating when we should be in a position where we should be calling for ceasefire. With Russia regarding Ukraine, I think people are not making that connection at all. This is kind of I think it's coincidental that this movie has come out as it did, but people are not making that connection that can happen to us.
That's what we're trying to make that connection, because in the back of that leaflet we put a text that says you are about to watch a film about one of the most important events ever, the dropping of the bomb in Hiroshima in 1945, a decision that didn't need to happen. I don't remember what else it says. It's like 3 paragraphs long. So we're kind of attempting to bridge the gap. On the movie itself, when I was out there leafleting, there was like some kid who came out who was like 19, 20 years.
What happened?
Uh-oh.
Why you freeze, Jose?
Hello?
Here you are.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, sorry. So there was like some 19-year-old kid who came out of the theater, and I asked him, like, so did you see the film? And he said, yeah, man. Like, damn, man. Like, I'm shocked. Like, that ending was like, it hit me hard because I think that's real. Have you guys seen the movie? Are you planning on seeing the movie?
I haven't
probably
seen it
within
yet,
the next week or so.
Yeah, we'll see it. But I'm good on spoilers if people want to. Spoiler alert.
All right. Well, it's not a huge spoiler. It's not really a spoiler, but like basically it's just Oppenheimer and Einstein talking, and they're like, Einstein's like, yes, how can I help you? And Oppenheimer's like, when I gave you those calculations that we might blow up the atmosphere by igniting a nuclear chain reaction that would never stop, we thought we would blow up the world, but we didn't. We were wrong. And Einstein said, yes, but actually, I think we did blow up the world. And then it cuts to like missiles being shot up. And the idea was that like, the world's going to end because of a nuclear war. And the movie kind of does.
Yeah.
This is the Earth. They genuinely freaked out about it. And I was like, good, here's a leaflet for you. Having this channel ear into something, because right now we are on the verge of nuclear war because of this Ukraine-Russian war that's happening right now. Any small misstep, okay, can trigger a nuclear war. I didn't mean to do this to the kid, but like I said, like it's a miracle we haven't been blown up already, because we have less communications with the Russians today than we did back when Kennedy was president and Reagan was president.
Middle of the Cold War.
We have like almost, yeah. And so the kid was like even more freaked out. I was like, well, I didn't, but hey, you got to wake people up to the realities of this. There's a certain usefulness to the film. I mean, I read what you showed at the beginning of the segment about the downwinders not getting their voice, and maybe I don't know. Difficult thing with what you decide to put in the film, because there we go. He doesn't even know the Japanese getting blown up, but he does something where they get blown up, and he also does something where his own conscience is like eating at him. I don't want to spoil anymore. All I can say is like, can be a tool if people make it a tool and do urge right now of blowing ourselves up because of the Ukraine-Russia war right now, and you need to act because Biden will fall asleep on the button or something and blow us all up.
He might trip and fall, break his hip on it.
That'd be messed up.
This article continues just a little bit more. So when Nolan teams got to New Mexico to film, downwinder Cordova and her team published an op-ed in the local newspaper that called on the Oppenheimer crew to grapple with the consequences of confronting the truth of our stories, of our history. When that didn't work, she reached out to the production team through Kai Bird, the journalist who co-wrote American Prometheus, in an attempt to get a meeting. She received a flat no. Cordova said she was aggravated, angry, and disappointed. The filmmakers had come to New Mexico to shoot the movie and rake in state-funded tax breaks, but showed little interest in engaging with locals affected by Oppenheimer's work. Tens of millions of people are going to flock to theaters to see the movie, and a lot of them have never been exposed to this history, she added. A short mention at the end of the movie could have changed that, Cordova argues. Universal Pictures, which produced the film, also did not respond to a request for comment from RS. Her concerns are not just about recognition. In 1990, Congress passed the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, which gave insurance and lump sum payments to the people affected by decades of nuclear testing at the Nevada test site, and I think as well the Hawaiian test site at Bikini Atoll, right? I do believe. RECA payouts to date total more than $2.5 billion, but New Mexican downwinders were not included in the original law or a broader version of it passed in 2000, a fact that former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson attributes to a simple lack of awareness about their plight. Cordova and her team have lobbied for years for an expanded version of RECA that would include New Mexican downwinders and some previously ineligible uranium miners, many of whom had little knowledge of just how dangerous their work was. A bipartisan group of lawmakers introduced an RECA expansion bill earlier this month. Imagine having radioactive waste fall down like dirty snow on your homes and communities, causing cancer and disease, said Rep. Teresa Ledger Fernandez, who supported the bill in the House. In a statement, then think about the despair when you learn that the U.S. government compensated other communities exposed to radiation during the nuclear testing program, but not yours. Lawmakers have introduced similar proposals several times in recent years, but with limited public awareness behind their efforts, the proposal has never quite gotten enough support in Congress to pass. Always just enough to not, right? It's an inconvenient truth, Cordova said. People just don't want to reflect on the fact that American citizens were bombed at Trinity. Born in 1947.
Or poisoned
or
poisoned in East Palestine, or poisoned in Flint, or, you can
pick
poisoned
one, right?
in New York. So
in Alamogordo, New Mexico,
just inconvenient that people have to think about suffering in this country based on our
government. So John Greenwood grew up in a short distance from the Trinity test site. Years of radiation exposure caught up with him in 2008. When he was first diagnosed with colon cancer, Greenwood and his family spent 4 years fighting for his life. Their insurance covered 80% of costs, but the remaining 20% added up quickly, given that a single chemotherapy treatment could cost $100,000. Other expenses fell by the wayside. One after another, utility companies cut off their electricity and phone lines, and their car was repossessed. But Laura Greenwood, John's wife, knew their only option was to keep going. I can't tell you how stressful it was, she remembered. You go to bed crying every night, wondering what you're going to do the next day. John passed away in 2012, just 6 months after learning that the cancer had metastasized to his liver. He was the 13th member of his family to die from cancer since the Trinity test. Greenwood's story highlights the devastating economic impact that years of health problems have had on downwinders. This, in part, is why RECA expansion has struggled to get off the ground in Congress. According to Laura, many lawmakers argue behind closed doors that it would simply be too expensive to compensate downwinders and cover future medical costs related to radiation exposure. But causing more war, that's fine.
What?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
You know,
Medicare for all fixes this.
Yes.
Right.
Single payer healthcare
Well,
in general.
that's what but isn't that what Biden said, that it would just be too expensive to give everybody Medicare for all?
I thought he stopped cancer. Didn't he stop cancer?
Apparently today.
That's right.
Apparently today he did.
Apparently
well, he had this brilliant idea. You know what? Maybe we should bring back. This is what Biden would do. If I was on his team, I would say bring back nuclear bombs so everyone can get free chemotherapy. Just give everyone radiation to cure their cancer.
There's some strategic nukes around major cities. You know, we'll take care of this problem. That's like when Trump wanted to nuke a hurricane. That's how you fix cancer, is just more radiation, right?
Chemotherapy is too expensive. We got all these nuclear bombs lying around. Let's just hit two birds with one stone.
So advocates of RECA expansion also have limited data to back up their claims of a link between the test and later cancers, which they blame in part on government secrecy surrounding the event. The specter of endless lawsuits haunted the military, and most of the authorities simply wanted to put the whole test and its after effects out of sight and mind. According to a Center for Disease Control and Prevention report on the history of the Los Alamos National Laboratory, a year-long study from the National Cancer Institute found that no firm estimates can be established on how many cancer cases came from the test due to limited radiation data from Oppenheimer's team and a lack of reliable information on cancer rates and daily habits in rural New Mexico at the time. Senator Ben Ray Lujan, who supports RECA expansion, called the NCI research limited when it was released. But one impact of the test is clear. In the months after the explosion, the entire state of New Mexico saw an unprecedented spike in infant mortality, with 56% more New Mexican babies dying during live births in 1945 than in 1944. The number went back down in 1946 and has never reached such high levels since, a statistical anomaly with a 0.0001% chance of being caused by natural conditions, according to the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist. To Nolan's credit, Oppenheimer includes affecting scenes in which the scientist wrestles with the pain brought by his life work. While it leaves out some notable parts of the history, the film offers a powerful and largely accurate account of Oppenheimer's quest to build and later try to contain the ultimate weapon, according to Stephen Schwartz, an expert on the history of nuclear weapons and a non-resident senior fellow with the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. He says, I don't think it glorifies nuclear weapons at all, which was the concern that some people had, Schwartz told RS. Viewers will leave with a better understanding of why he did what he did and all the complications that ensued. He added, I hope that it sparks many conversations, but Cordova sees the lack of engagement with downwinders as a major missed opportunity. She remembered back in 2018 when the Santa Fe Opera put on a production of Dr. Atomic, an opera about the lead up to the Trinity test. When Peter Sellers, who wrote the show's Liberato, found out about the problems faced by downwinders, he invited Cordova and her team to talk about their experiences on stage before each performance.
Bro, that's funny. The guy's name is Peter Sellers, or Peter Sellers, because Dr.
Right.
Strangelove was played by Peter Sellers. So.
Very ironic. Yeah. There's no fighting in the war room. So one of my favorite lines of all time. Yeah. Despite her lack of...
I've been saying we should do like a movie night with that movie. I think that movie's really funny. And
I'm
really
down.
good.
It was on YouTube not that long ago for people who wanted to watch it in full.
It's public domain now. It's public domain. Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah. It's been
despite her lack of luck with the Oppenheimer team, Cordova remains optimistic. She hopes the movie will encourage people to learn more about the impact of nuclear tests and boost support for her cause. Every movement that has ever been started has a tipping point, she said. this movie could have been that tipping point, and it still might be that tipping point. So that's
I think she's doing a good job so far. Is what I'm saying. She could be bridging the gap, and I appreciate that because there's a lot in that article that I didn't know before reading it, and I didn't know that, and I'm glad that she's out there actually advocating for that because that is very important. I do agree with the article that the point is that it should never have been made to begin with. And one of the things was go on.
Oh, I was talking about the scientists that were harmed during this as well, the American GIs that were harmed in this that they literally used as guinea pigs. There's so much of the U.S. military will go to any end to make sure that they are the sole destroyers of the world. We get to that whole supremacy change that we about around that time, right? And then they've got a history of this, right? Agent Orange at Camp Lejeune. They don't care. Military testing is going to military test. So, but not to mention the terrible atrocities at Hiroshima and Nagasaki that these things caused. It fucked up shit here at home. It was practically a tourist destination for people in Vegas at a certain time. Kennedy was out there watching it go up, so hanging out with Marilyn while he was there. But,
Yeah.
So anything to add?
I'll say, what this about the nuclear bomb is that recently being out in the street, I saw some boomers who were like, you guys don't know anything about that period. It was a good thing we bombed the Japanese because we saved so many lives. And that's a point they bring up in the film. I don't know. The movie kind of leaves it ambiguous as to whether or not that's true. I thought it invited the audience to make that decision. But, and I put out a poll on my Twitter too, because I have a pretty good spread of followers. My followers aren't just left wing or right wing. It's everyone in between. I think that's in part because of the interventions. And, it's like a bloodbath in the comments on those polls because they're like, oh, Japan should have been nuked, should not have been nuked. But one thing everybody did agree on was that there should not be another nuclear bomb today. Nobody should have a nuclear bomb dropped. And even the people who want deterrence, who say, no, we still need them because it deters other countries from using the nuclear bomb. It's like, well, in principle, that means you're still against dropping the bomb because if one bomb is dropped, the whole world is dead. What good is getting into a fight with somebody knowing you're both going to die? Mm-hmm. So, people aren't that stupid and crazy. So everybody in the world, unless you're I don't know, in the Ukrainian government and you're a Ukrainian Nazi, or if you're in the Biden administration and your name's Anthony Blinken, does not want another nuclear bomb dropped in the world. They don't. Mm-hmm. But there are people in Biden's cabinet right now who believe you can win a nuclear war. They were around during Kennedy. They are around during Reagan. They're around right now. There are people walking around in Biden's cabinet telling him every day, if we just did strategic nuclear bombs here, here, and here, we could win a nuclear war.
Yep. Well, we'll just use depleted uranium in the meantime. That should do well. Speaking of which, also, where do you think we tested our depleted uranium rounds? Ask the people of Hawaii under that mountain with the observatories on it. That place. That's where they used it, and they all have their problems, cancer and whatnot. So, and just ask what was it? Was it Fallujah where we used a ton of depleted uranium against? Somebody will inform me where we used that in the Middle East that had significant children come with problems out the womb. But anyway, you ready for our next story, Care Bear?
Yep. So
hold on, gentlemen. My webcam is overheating. That's why it's freezing me up occasionally. I'm running low.
Okay.
I can probably do the next story, and then I think I have to run after that.
Head out.
That's
cool.
fine. Okay.
We got you.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So yesterday was a big day for Teamsters by way of UPS. It was reported yesterday that they won, they got a tentative deal for their contract, which, just to keep in mind, still has to be voted on. So I think they have another couple of weeks to vote on it, the rank and file members. And again, as I said earlier, want to give a preface of this saying that I think even for us at INM, we got a little too excited about this in kind of announcing this news. And as you could see here, come on. Yeah. Well, with the Teamsters, they mentioned, we changed the game. Teamsters win historic UPS contract. Today, the Teamsters reached the most historic tentative agreement for workers in the history of UPS, protecting and rewarding more than 340,000 UPS Teamsters nationwide. So we tweeted this out as well, sharing our excitement, and then having quite a long conversation with Reef and Indy today before we went live. We realized, and based on what we were hearing from workers after that, this may not be such a great contract as what it's, being promoted as. So we're going to not necessarily backtrack. I do think it's important to share what was said at least yesterday, and then we're going to dial it back a little bit and kind of give the reality of what certain workers are saying regarding the contract. So I just want to make that clarification, because I do think with most issues there is nuance that I think we have to understand both sides, and we do want to give you guys
where we like find that at? That exists? Shit.
I know. Is that thing, especially in this space, when depending on the issue that we're not supposed to necessarily believe, depending on what it is. But
everything is black and white. All right, everything.
So I do want to share. That being said, I do want to share what was reported on yesterday for sure. Dial it back a little bit and share what people on the ground, with a couple of cases, what they really think. So just giving you guys a larger perspective of what is being reported. That being said, this article is written by Common Dreams, written by Jake Johnson, where he writes, UPS strike likely averted as Teamsters celebrate historic contract victory. This contract sets a new standard in the labor union movement and raises the bar for all workers, said Teamsters President Sean O'Brien. Yep. So Jake continues, come on, thank you. The Teamsters and UPS on Tuesday reached a tentative 5-year contract agreement that union negotiators hailed as an historic victory, likely averting what could have been the largest single employer strike in U.S. history. In a statement, Teamsters President Sean O'Brien said, "We demanded the best contract in the history of UPS, and we got it. UPS has put $30 billion in new money on the table as a direct result of these negotiations," said O'Brien. "We've changed the game, battling out day and night to make sure our members want an agreement that pays strong wages, rewards their labor, and doesn't require a single concession. This contract sets a new standard in the labor movement and raises the bar for all workers." According to the union, which represents roughly 340,000 workers, the tentative contract includes historic wage increases for full and part-time UPS Teamsters, new health and safety protections such as in-cab air conditioning for larger delivery vehicles, an end to forced overtime on scheduled days off, and the creation of 7,500 new union jobs. Under the new agreement, full and part-time UPS workers would receive a $2.75 per hour wage boost this year and a $7.50 per hour raise over the course of the contract.
Wow.
UPS CEO Carol Tomei described the contract agreement as a win-win-win. Rank and file union members still must approve the deal. If they don't, there will be a strike following the voting period, Teamsters leaders said.
I don't like that the UPS CEO is like happy with this,
Right.
that doesn't bode well.
Voting
Well,
is set to...
I'm listening to all this. I'm like, okay, where's the
catch?
Where's the shake? Where's the
What's the catch? We're gonna get there.
Okay.
Voting is set to begin on August 3rd and end on August 22nd. That's my mom's birthday. UPS came dangerously close to putting itself on strike, but we kept firm on our demands, said Teamsters General Secretary Treasurer Fred Zuckerman. In my more than 40 years in Louisville, representing members at Worldport, the largest UPS hub in the country, I've never seen a national contract that levels a playing field for workers so dramatically as this one. The agreement puts more money in our members' pockets and establishes a full range of new protections for them on the job, Zuckerman added. We stay focused on our members and fought like hell to get everything that full-time and part-time UPS Teamsters deserve. The tentative bargaining agreement was reached less than a week before the current contract was set to expire. Last month, 97% of UPS workers represented by the Teamsters voted to authorize a strike if there was no acceptable deal with management by the end of July. Senator Bernie Sanders applauded the Teamsters for negotiating a strong pro-worker contract with UPS. Oh, God. This is what progressive grassroots union leadership is all about, the senator wrote. This is a major victory for American working class. Let's keep going.
It'll be huge.
All right. So again, we're going to preface, this is what we did yesterday. So this is from us. Huge congratulations to the 340,000 UPS Teamsters on securing a strong TA to vote on July 31st. Zero concessions from management. Big unsung heroes were the UPS pilots who said they would not fly in solidarity if there was a strike without a strike fund. So, here we go. So this is what Indian Reef talked about Sunday on how do we miss that. And so, yeah, so we'll just play this part in a podcast where they talked about that in terms of, you know, the implications of pilots also going in solidarity in strike with UPS. So
rolling bean footage.
Go ahead.
This is Sean O'Brien, who's the head of the Teamsters Union. Again, 340,000 UPS workers he represents. So People City Council was there. I then said that the sound that you hear is all the executives at UPS simultaneously shitting their pants. And then we got even more good news because the 3,300 UPS pilots said that they will stand in solidarity with the 340,000 Teamsters should they choose to strike and not fly. Here's the article. And this warmed my heart. So the union representing UPS pilots says they will not cross picket lines if Teamsters drivers and package sorters walk off the job when the current contract expires on August 1st, resulting in the immediate shutdown of the Express Logistics Company's global air operations. UPS has 3,300 pilots who are represented by the Independent Pilots Association, a separate union from the Teamsters. But if the Teamsters go on strike, we will honor that strike and we will not fly. Sorry, I just want to make this a little bigger, make it a little bit easier for everyone to see. Right? UPS pilots are allowed under their collective bargaining agreement to honor primary picket lines and did that for 16 days during the Teamsters strike in 1997. It's critical. So in 97, 100% of their pilot group respected your picket lines by not turning an aircraft wheel on behalf of the company. Right? The solidarity is awesome. We will honor any potential IBT strike and act in sympathy with our fellow workers at UPS. Even with freighters in service, a strike by 340,000 package drivers would effectively ground most UPS Airlines operations, right? Because there would be few, if any, personnel to load and unload aircraft, process packages, deliver them to and from airport facilities. But they would try to hire, here, it says it's training non-union employees to handle packages in the event that there is a labor disruption. But this is very good news. But however, we don't have a strike fund. How do the pilots for the UPS not have a strike fund? That's scary. Now, I just hope that when it comes down to it, that they actually do strike in solidarity. I'm guessing that they will. And that, by the way, is bringing management back to the table.
So what happened? This seems like a good deal.
Yes, but I think that's the thing is they were willing to throw them a bone so that they don't have strikes, you know, and so they don't get the solidarity strike happening. And like, see, there's a lot of things striking right now, Jose, and they don't want more of it. So if they can, they're willing to throw you 80% of what you want, which is what they got here.
Right.
So like,
but
get you to shut up.
The 80%, but it's questionable of how that will be kind of dispersed,
effective
among the workers. So we're going to get to that though, because there's
Mr. Sean O'Brien.
There's a lot that it's not necessarily being said in this. Well, at least I think the contract was released today. So there's a lot, at least that what workers are saying that what they saw that they went through, it's not as great as it seems. But we'll get there in a second.
My webcam is about to die.
Oh no.
My webcam being my phone, I'm at 1%. I think I'm just gonna do a formal exit here so I don't awkwardly. Wait, what is this? AOC amazing news?
Yes, amazing news. Congratulations, Teamsters. Joe, this should tell you everything you need to know. No, it's not a fucking historic
that was
contract.
my instinct.
Yes, the workers got fucked once again. Fuck this shit. Guess who else weighed in, Jose? None other than Chunk Yogurt himself. This was an excellent contract. Terrific work by Teamsters SOB. UPS made $11 billion in profit over the last 12 months. They could afford it. Y'all remember this? When he got rid of his union, just throwing that in there for good measure. But anyway, you got to head out, Jose.
So
yeah, I am. I'm gonna switch to my computer. I don't have a microphone or webcam, so I'm gonna keep watching the story. But thank you for having me on.
Oh, no problem. But before you go, where can people find you? And we do have the Etsy link for the poster if people want to buy it. But where can people find you?
People can find Kynan and I on YouTube at Declaring Independence. And people can follow me on Twitter at HoseBTrigga, JOSBTRIGGA, Hoseb, because Jose was taken. So
nice.
Yeah.
All right. And yeah, so thank you so much, Jose. Too bad you can't stay for the whole thing, but good luck to you, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you kindly.
Take care.
Cool.
There we go. And we're down to 2.
So
that was an easy transition.
Yeah, I had it ready just in case.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah.
So all right. So yeah. So we'll continue. So AOC.
Yeah. Oh no, we went through AOC. That was it.
Oh yeah, we did. So
just that she was saying it was good.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna kill Reef for a second.
Don't worry, I'll zoom in on the other guy. You know.
Yeah, I am gonna play Sasku.
Yes.
Because Jordan did actually have a part-time UPS worker from New York on. His name is Luigi, and he actually made a tweet regarding to the contract today.
Yeah.
So, and I think he says a lot of stuff here that I didn't think he mentioned as clear in his tweet. So, so I want you guys to kind of listen to what he says. Again, he's part-time, so just to give that context.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll hear from him what he thinks.
Part-time worker on to get your response. I know you've been really active in the organizing ahead of a potential strike. You were, doing tables outside at 3 a.m, organizing people. So let me just remind the audience what the core kind of wins that the Teamsters are claiming. You have existing full and part-time UPS Teamsters will get $2.75 more per hour in 2023. And over the length of the contract, the wage increases will go to $7.50 an hour. So that's total, to be clear, $7.50 increase over the entire contract. Existing part-timers will be raised up to no less than $21 per hour immediately. And part-time seniority workers earning more under a market rate adjustment would still receive all new general wage increases. A couple other things in there, but those are the key elements for wages. First off, have you seen the full agreement yet? Because I know a lot of people haven't. And what are your thoughts, at least, about what's being reported as a part-time worker?
Yes, thank you for having me. I know so far
as almost everyone, I have only seen the highlights. So everything that I can say is based on that. And I understand that we will have the full contract supposedly by Monday. So there is still many details to know. My first, thoughts about this is, the contract has a lot of very good improvements. Like if you compare this to the last two previous contracts, that is a big improvement. A lot of people is, excited about the things that has been obtained. Many are surprised, especially people who has more time were expecting, something terrible. But having said that, recognizing the important gains, I feel like for part-timers, we could have gotten much more from what we got. Especially, I'm making $16.50 per hour. So jumping to $21 is a change, it's significant, but it's still far from what we were expecting. We were expecting from the beginning of the campaign, especially Teamsters groups like TDU and Teamsters Mobilize, they have been pushing for $25 an hour. And that seemed like a fair fight to have, a fair reason to strike for. But now we are in 21, that if you think about it, we should be already in 21. Like this, the previous contract should have put us on 21.
Can you pause
and
there?
Now should have...
So basically what Luigi is saying, he didn't say in this way. Essentially what they're asking for is a living wage.
Yeah.
In a matter of speaking. If they're asking for about 25, that's really, if you look at the averages among all states, as far as what the living wage is, it hovers around 25. So really, essentially what they're asking for is a living wage.
Yeah.
And they got short of that, but he continues here to kind of share what the problem with that is. Go ahead.
We should have been, fighting for a wage based on that. So 21 seems something good, maybe for 3 years ago, 2 years ago. And this is a union job. It's a grueling and super hard job. So I was expecting much more, especially for all the momentum. We are coming out from the pandemic. Teamsters didn't receive any kind of bonus or essential workers pay, no hazard pay.
No bonus.
I feel like the company was owing us a lot, especially thinking on their record profits and all that.
Yeah. And also, it matters where you live. I mean, you're in New York.
Yeah.
$21 an hour will not get you that far, even part-time, in New York. It's the most expensive place to live in the country. Maybe that would be good if you're living somewhere else. But can you kind of talk about what it's like living currently off of the $16 an hour and at $21 an hour? Is that comfortable? I mean, you're part-time, so presumably you'll still have to work other jobs.
Yes. So something that maybe that is a surprise and comes in the full.
You Russian? Jordan over here with Russian scum? What's going on? You a Putin propagandist now, Jordan?
Contract, but if this would have changed, I'm sure that would have been added to the highlights. My contract, I'm only guaranteed 3 hours and a half. So sometimes, these weeks there are more work, so I'm doing 5 hours. On average, I do 4. Yep. By contract, and especially in low season, 3 hours and a half. So jumping from 16.50 to 21 for me means $90 extra per week. That doesn't change. Like on the weekends, I get side jobs, especially in restaurants, and I also do photography, not very often, but I need to have all these free things going on to be able to barely makes ends meet. And if in New York City it's about to raise the subway fare, I live in Bushwick. I'm in a Puerto Rican Ecuadorian area that is being gentrified, so the rent is going higher. So it really feels short. And, you know, I hear from maybe coworkers from other states that they see that more reasonable. But from cities, it fell short. And some cities, I don't know, like Seattle, for example, they already have the market rate adjustment. So they're already doing 21. So what they are getting is a confirmation that 21 won't be taken away, but they're not getting a raise with this. And
Right.
this is a contract that lasts 5 years. Every new part-timer will have a cap of $23. So in 2028, with inflation, economic crisis, economic uncertainty, $23, I don't think that will mean something huge.
Yep. So that's the problem. And by the way, your screen froze, Reef.
Okay. I'll try to fix that.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll keep talking while you are speaking. I'll kind of talk about it. But yeah, that's the biggest thing that Indy Reef and I kind of talked about earlier today is the idea that, okay, yeah, they increased the wage, but depending on, well, especially this is more effective of part-timers, that's not a guarantee that they're going to get the hours that they're going to need in order to live. Yeah, you're going to get paid more, but who's to say they're going to cut you out, that they can easily cut your hours. So that's really what Luigi is saying, is the idea of like, yeah, I'm going to make more, but I don't get many hours and I don't control over how much hours I work. I'm part-time. So as he said, and I definitely feel for him on this, when I used to many years ago, when I used to work for the Gap, when they actually were cool, the clothing store, like some weeks they might give me like 20 hours a week. Some weeks they might give me 5. Some weeks they might just give me 3, you know, depending on how good or how bad business was. So, and you don't control that. So I think that's one of the big things that people are not necessarily talking about in terms of this contracts. So, and that's something that I think even Indy Reef and I, we kind of, not to say we missed it, but we realized, as people were saying, you know, what's the catch in this contract? And that's kind of why, you know, we kind of say here, like, unions are a great first step, but they're not the ultimate of what workers should have, because there's a lot that workers still don't control. And you still have to negotiate with corporations in order to get basic needs. And I saw a lot of people even online basically being like, well, they're part-time. Why should they get as much money as they're asking for? Like, you don't know the reasons why people are working part-time. Some people might be working part-time just so they can support their kids and may not want to work a full-time job. Some people, you know, you don't know the reasons why people work part-time. But regardless, the idea is typically if you're part-time, or depending on the industry, if you're entry level or if you're like an assistant, you typically get paid less. And oftentimes, depending on the industry, you might be doing just as much, if not more, than full-time or more experienced workers. So these are the issues that I think that people were mentioning, and like a lot of threads that I saw earlier today, this is what people were discussing, that they're not necessarily happy with this contract. Reef, you got anything you want to add to this while you're working on this?
No, there's so much in general. Like, you know, you've got, I don't know, I feel like labor to me is reformist in nature. I've said that a few times this week.
Yeah.
And like, it makes it where people are willing to accept the crumbs offered, you know, to deal with things. You know what I mean? Like, and then they won't accept more sweeping change. and they won't fight for more sweeping change because they got thrown a bone. You know?
Right.
So
well, I think this is kind of the danger of, and I said this earlier, the danger of having Democrats allegedly being pro-union,
right,
is because of shit like this. It's because they're in the hands of corporate. There you go. They're in the hands of corporations.
Wrong one. Hold on. Keep going.
This is they're in the pocket of corporations that want to save their assets, and they're not going to go full in of what workers want. And as we saw, the fact that AOC, attended a Teamsters event, and we mentioned this with Smalls, anytime that a politician, well, unfortunately, but it's the way it is now, a politician attends a union event, that makes it partisan, so it gives the impression that Democrats, are for unions when it really should be a nonpartisan issue. But then not only that, and I just thought of this, if workers are complaining about this, about this contract, Democrats essentially have to kind of back that, because they're the ones who say that they're supportive of unions. But I think generally in our culture, unions, depending on the industry, get a bad rap, but I think most people would assume unions to be good. And the idea of being reformist and had it bit by bit by bit is something that's actually good. But I think the big problem is, especially given our state of affairs now with inflation and everything just being so much more expensive, the reforms are not good enough anymore, because it's not necessarily incorporated into inflation naturally, that people feel like they're actually able to kind of make ends meet on the finances that they do get. So it sucks in a way that we have to kind of report on it in this way. But again, as we said, we wanted to give I don't want to say the positives, but at least what people were saying, at least the general reporting. And now that we've had a day to kind of reflect and kind of talk about it and kind of see what people were saying, over 24 hours later, kind of humbling ourselves a little bit, humbling ourselves a lot, and just kind of being like, these are the issues, but these are the problems that that workers have with the contract. But it also does align with what we've said regarding unions in the past. So like we said, they have until close to the end of August to vote on it. So the idea of striking is still on the table. But given what I just experienced in terms of what I just went through my local teachers union, I don't think they're going to strike now. Because I think just the idea of making more money, even though it's little, is going to be enough for most. And so I would imagine that most other workers will vote for it. But without necessarily thinking of the implications in terms of how much basic needs will probably go up. And especially if we probably end up going into war with Ukraine or possibly China in the future, I can imagine a lot of goods will be a lot more expensive within the next few years. So we'll wait and see. So we'll definitely keep an eye on this. And just as a plug, don't forget to watch How Do We Miss That? Indy and Reef talk more labor stories on that show. So feel free to check them out Sunday nights at 10 Eastern. And I'm sure they're going to keep you guys abreast of that story. So
general strike, people, any day now would be nice.
Yeah.
You know.
Although I will admit, I was kind of disappointed. Although I was kind of disappointed that they didn't go on strike. I will say
that's
that.
kind of what everyone's
like, as much at least like initially I was like, yay, they won. But like I also was kind of like they should like put the fear and retribution in like the government and being like, we'll go on strike, you know.
Yeah.
So but they still can, so we'll wait and see.
We'll see.
We'll see.
I say you ask for more this time. Go on strike, ask for more this time, you know, and be like, how about you second try at this deal? You didn't give us all the last deal that was a compromise. Now we up this wager, you know? So, right. But anyway, that's me playing hardball. And get Jimmy Hoffa to break some kneecaps while you're at it, and you should get what you want. But you brought fourth little story here.
Yeah, well, not story. It's a book review, book report, however you want to define it. I thought it was interesting. I think, and especially we're talking about this, Jose, we talked about war, especially with the Oppenheimer movie. I thought this would be an appropriate thing, maybe to kind of read through, and then for you guys, if you're interested in buying the book for yourselves, you can go. We're not going to tell you where to get this book, but you can go get it at your leisure if you choose to. It could be a good summer read for those of you who do that. But at least the premise of this book sounds very interesting. So I thought we'll read through it and then we can kind of talk about it. So this book is written by Norman Solomon, and the book, obviously, it's called War Made Invisible: How America Hides the Human Toll of Its Military Machine. And Jonathan Ng wrote this review in Truth Out, where he writes, new book exposes the horror of the US's endless invisible wars. Norman Solomon offers a powerful framework for understanding geopolitical crises and the enduring costs of militarism. So he continues, this June, the Swiss journalist Maureen Mercier found several U.S. citizens fighting in Ukraine under the guise of humanitarian work. All of them are veterans, former soldiers who fought in all the recent American wars, the Gulf War, Iraq, Afghanistan, she reports. Many suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, carrying the embodied ghosts of past conflicts and deep psychic wounds to the latest geopolitical conflagration. One veteran Mercer interviewed admits he's addicted to combat, throwing himself into suicide missions on the front line. He's already killed 13 people in Ukraine. Approximately to death allows him to feel alive, the shock of adrenaline taking him to this beautiful hidden space where the colors are brighter and the sounds are different, vibrant. Back home, he lacks a sense of belonging. But in Ukraine, there's something. At a fundamental level, these rudderless warriors are a symbol of a society addicted to warfare. They reflect the tensions that author and anti-war activist Norman Solomon unwinds in his brilliant new book, War Made Invisible, which examines the profound causes and costs of U.S. interventionism. Solomon offers a powerful framework for understanding geopolitical crises, as well as the unseen yet enduring costs of militarism. As the war on Ukraine lurches on, Solomon highlights 3 underlying facets of U.S. power that are especially useful for interpreting our current moment: an embedded in intelligentsia, an economy that exports violence, intelligentsia, thank you, an economy that exports violence, and the infrastructure of a global empire. Solomon's book unveils the disturbing proximity between the ruling class and the corporate media since the Vietnam War, revealing how the Fourth Estate sustains the assumptions that makes intervention possible in Ukraine and elsewhere. The essence of propaganda is repetition, he argues. The frequency of certain assumptions blend into a kind of white noise, conditioning U.S. people to support military operations that they never see or truly understand. This was never clearer than during the 2003 invasion of Iraq. Officials in the U.S.-led military coalition privately worried that journalists would realize they had no killer fact that proves Saddam Hussein must be taken on. Nonetheless, the New York Times echoed false claims that Iraq possessed nuclear weapons and actively cheered the war effort. Its columnist, Thomas Friedman, even advocated sending soldiers house to house from Barsa to Baghdad in a naked exhibition of military might while telling Iraqis to suck on this. Indeed, across the media landscape, embedded intellectuals mobilized their pens to solidify public support for war. ABC, NBC, CBS, and PBS all skewed their coverage. In the 2 weeks before the invasion, the networks aired only one U.S. guest out of 267 who questioned the war. MSNBC even scrapped Phil Donahue's show after the prominent anchor questioned the Bush administration's motives for intervention. Instead of encouraging sustained reflection, war to bloodless spectacles of national power and technological achievement. Solomon notes that the Pentagon, embedded around 750 journalists, integrating them directly into the architecture of the war effort. After promoting the invasion of Iraq, many of the same voices now propound further NATO intervention in the war on Ukraine. The New York Times calls America's support for Ukraine a test of its place in the world in the 21st century. Most media outlets seem oblivious to the similarities between the two wars of aggression. Yet the parallels remain inescapable. In May, former President Bush mistakenly denounced Russian President Vladimir Putin for his wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of Iraq before clarifying that he meant Ukraine. By echoing state officials, the corporate media lend government propaganda the appearance of private conviction and objective truth. Overall, America has been conditioned to accept ongoing wars without ever really knowing what they're doing to people we'll never see, Solomon concludes. In particular, press coverage of the war on Ukraine projects the illusion of consensus, even as public support for NATO's military buildup declines. By erasing dissent, media conglomerates hide the grisly cost of war and the imperialist system that wages it, profiting from conflict by selling narratives that render it invisible. In many ways, militarism is a form of class warfare. The fat profit margins from supplying the Pentagon and kindred agencies, Solomon explains, exacerbate economic inequality while redirecting resources away from social programs. True. In effect, war is perpetual because it is profitable, enriching an elite firmly entrenched in the military-industrial complex. Confirming Solomon's thesis, the Department of Defense published a landmark study of military contractors this April that registered outstanding market returns, including an increase in operating margins, profit as a percentage of revenue, from 7.9% to 11% to 13% over the last 2 decades. Arms makers outperform commercial peers because of government contracts that guarantees profits and cash flow. Despite a jump in dividends and share buybacks from 3.7% to 6.4%, the industry actually decreased investment in business operations. Firms declined to plow back earnings into research or capital stock, instead funneling revenue to shareholders. Auditors compared the massive transfer of resources to investors to eating the seed corn, damaging future prospects by overconsuming critical resources for the short-term benefit they offer. Beyond guzzling government revenue, investigators also complained that companies engage in blatant war profiteering. Former Director of Defense Pricing Shay Assad reports that the price gouging that takes place is unconscionable and widespread. Lockheed Martin and Boeing notoriously overcharged the government for the PAC-3 missile, reaping 40% profits rather than the legal 10 to 12%, according to a 60 Minutes report. During the Iraq War, Dim Group even refused to supply critical valves for Appalachian helicopters before boosting prices 40%, a practice that auditors call extortion. The concentration of industry power in the hands of defense conglomerates and the war in Ukraine encouraged price gouging. For many of these weapons that are being sent over to Ukraine right now, there's only one supplier, former Director of Defense Pricing Assad told 60 Minutes, and the companies know it. Meanwhile, military contractors are using Ukraine and other strategic markets as testing grounds for arms systems. Major General Robin Fontes and Jarrett, I can't read. Oh, geez. Got scrambled a little bit. Jarrett Kaminga, who run the weapons consulting firm RAIN, argued in National Defense magazine that Ukraine is a laboratory for the future of warfare, a center stage, relentless and unprecedented effort to fine-tune, adapt, and improve artificial intelligence-enabled systems. Woof! Oh boy. Mobilizing AI tech software, companies such as Planet Labs and Black Sky Technology provide intelligence to soldiers in real time, functioning as UX extensions of the Ukrainian war effort while creating a fluid and information-rich fighting environment. This month, the Biden administration even approved cluster bombs for Ukraine after previously suggesting their use constituted a war crime. And we talked about this a few weeks ago. Ukrainian Russian forces already yield them in combat, violating an international convention that bans the indiscriminate explosives. In past conflicts, investigators allege that Western firms manufacture them in playful shapes to attract and maim civilians, including children. Jesus. Yet for arms makers, the Middle East remains...
Those are those battle mines. Is what they're called.
Yeah. So just as an aside,
Alina Lip, who we've had on Tara's show, has covered those pretty extensively. Yeah. There's a few others that have been I also thought of something, and I'm not sure who mentioned this. It might have been Due Dissonance. Shout out to them. But former the late Princess Diana. Remember, like when she was alive. This was her thing. Like she talked a lot about landmines, especially how they affected children. So that was kind of like her issue. Are even worse in some respects. Essentially, they look like little butterflies, and like once the halves of the butterfly get twisted or affected or whatever, the issue is they drop them from planes, right? So they end up in trees and in random stuff. So even if you don't step on one or in an area of like they're putting these in residential areas, they end up on playgrounds and schools and whatever. So, and they've been doing it to the Donbass for a while. So, yeah, there's been stories of that and photos you probably shouldn't go look up. So,
Yet for arms makers, the Middle East remains the quintessential weapons laboratory. Israel was the first foreign country to receive the F-35 Lightning, and its orders funded the fighter plane's development. In 2014, Israeli forces leveled entire swaths of Palestine with the jets while helping Lockheed Martin hone their design. I wish Jose was here to hear that part. That would have been good to talk about with his friends the other day.
Yep.
During the offensive, the U.S. restocked Israel's ammunition immediately after it bombed an elementary school, enabling its forces to exceed Hamas's firepower by a ratio of 440 to 1. Shortly before the May 2023 raids, Israeli pilots conducted a large-scale exercise in the F-35s with their U.S. peers at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. It is a rare opportunity for warfighters of both countries to integrate our most advanced capabilities, exclaimed Colonel Jared Hudson.
This is weapons testing. This is in the field testing.
Yes.
That's what this is.
Right. Here as well as in Ukraine, basically. So, exclaimed Colonel Jared Hudson, the U.S. commander overseeing the initiative. Afterward, Israel pounded Gaza with U.S. ordnance, including a Boeing GBU-39 bomb that gutted an apartment building, killing several civilians, including a young woman preparing for her wedding. The military campaign damaged 2,943 housing units, employing disproportionate airstrikes that Amnesty International deemed war crimes. Rather than undermining relations, U.S. and Israeli arms makers turned crimes into publicity arguments. Only 1 month later, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, Ebit Systems, and Israel Aerospace Industries attended the Paris Air Show to clinch new sales, boasting that their weapons were combat proven. Tellingly,
there's a group in the UK that has been particularly pretty revolutionary, throwing bricks through windows and whatnot, about Elbit Systems. If I'm not mistaken, they've been doing good work on that in the UK. So keep that up. Pretty pleased and thank you.
Tellingly, Haaretz called the occupied territories a classroom for the military to test its equipment, which U.S. aid heavily subsidizes. The money continues to flow. Solomon relates that arms makers spent $2.5 billion in lobbying over the past 2 decades, funding the campaigns of key legislators such as House Armed Services Committee Chairman Adam Smith. By globalizing the military-industrial complex, the ruling class has made war at once permanent yet distant, sustaining the U.S. empire's formidable war-making capacity with foreign conflicts. Allies like Ukraine and Israel become markets and sales pitches for battle-tested equipment. Geopolitical upheaval underwrites the prosperity of conglomerates while devouring resources for social programs and scroll down, please.
Yep.
And the poor. Finally, the ruling class makes war invisible by using anonymous recruits and private contractors to maintain the diffuse infrastructure of a global empire. In the 1970s, the military transitioned to an all-volunteer force to sap energy from the anti-war movement and insulate the armed forces from scrutiny. Army recruiting learned how to sell military service alongside soap and soft drinks in the consumer marketplace, historian Beth Bailey observes. Solomon emphasizes that recruiters have preyed on the vulnerable, promising that enlisting means opening doors to better opportunities. By introducing economic incentives and eliminating the draft, officials created a warrior class isolated from the general public. The Pentagon now mobilizes it for wars that most of the US public will never witness, preemptively minimizing political backlash. So that kind of reminds me, like, from what I understand, like during Vietnam, they showed like on TV a lot of those deaths and everything, which didn't help matters as far as people making people more anti-war than ever. So that's when they kind of cut that out. But it makes sense, in terms of now. And I think especially here in the US where we might see some bombings every once in a while, but like not to the degree like other countries in the Middle East and the global South see. So the idea of talking about war here is kind of like something that happens over there and not something that happens here. So while people may not necessarily be fans of it, they're kind of removed from it because it's invisible. We don't witness it, and we don't witness the full effects of war in this country as well as Western Europe. So it definitely does track with the idea of like, it's very easy to push war here because the majority of people don't see it.
Yeah.
And then people who do witness it, like look at our veterans, look what happens to them. Often than not, like we kind of hide them or they become crazy where, due to post-traumatic system, like health issues and all that we don't hear from them once they come back. So we don't get to hear really the atrocities of war often, if at all. I would argue the closest thing like would be for most people in this generation, like 9/11, I think would be kind of the closest thing that most people in this country would kind of align with war, if you can call it that. But yeah, I mean, overall, this sounds like an interesting book. Like,
Yep.
Like I think I'm probably going to purchase it, honestly. I think it definitely seems, and even though it's very recent, I like how Solomon added Ukraine, just kind of like the testing point. But I think just even in the little that was said here, just basically saying Ukraine is basically a testing ground for weapons.
Yep.
And having this conversation with Kit, and this is something that I didn't think about when I was speaking to him on Monday on Hardlines Media. We talked about AI, and we talked about the idea of AI can be a problematic in terms of media. Didn't even think about it in use for war. That's another thing that we should consider as far as AI, because then you don't need bodies to essentially push the button. Essentially, the AI will basically do it for you. That's a scary thing to think about, that
we talked
have
about
that potential to do that.
AI drone swarms and AI nuke defense, and it's something that the military is heavily not to mention you get into the real sci-fi stuff of replication, and if robots can build robots, we start getting to the singularity, Collin. You got to call John Connor.
What's that short movie you made we watched that scared me?
Oh, Murder Bots or whatever it was called. I forget what that one's called.
Yeah. But
look up AI drone swarms. I think it'll probably come up. But yeah, a little bit of plastic C4, little tiny drone. It's gonna be fine. Facial recognition and whatever. It should be okay. Collin, don't worry about it. You got some more of this?
I think I'm done. Let me see. Is
that it?
No, actually not. I think that's the last one.
Yeah.
No, two more, I believe. No, I'm not done. So anyway, I thought that was it, but as economic inequality increases, an analyst from the Brookings Institution underscores that the military is one of the last bastions of middle-class social mobility, attracting recruits with healthcare and free college tuition. This is not new to us here. Yet the Army faces chronic personnel shortages, encouraging officials to target children as young as 12, as well as marginalized groups, including Indigenous communities in Canada. In recent years, the military has sought recruits by offering citizenship to foreign nationals, enhancing its presence on social media, and even advertising fake Xbox giveaways to lure youth to its website.
Yep.
Solomon also points out that such personnel oversees an intricate network of around 250 bases worldwide, allowing the armed forces to flex their muscles across every continent. Also talked about this. Beyond facilitating large-scale mobilizations, foreign military installations make covert operations and even political intrigue impossible. Reportedly, bases in Latin America have facilitated coups against left-wing governments. After Ecuadorian President Rafael, can you zoom in, please?
Yes.
Rafael Correa closed an installation at Manta. His successor leveled spurious legal charges against him while welcoming U.S. forces back to the country. In 2018, the Ecuadorian Defense Military even announced plans to allow the U.S. military to use the Guadalapos Islands for operations, calling the archipelago a natural aircraft carrier. Foreign bases also allow the U.S. to secure control over strategic resources. Nowhere is this truer than mineral-rich Peru, where last December, U.S. officials supported the ouster of President Pedro Castillo, a populist promoting economic sovereignty. His rival, Dina Boluarte, initiated a wave of repression that has killed more than 60 civilians, culminating in what the president of the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights calls a massacre against the indigenous population in Ayacucho. Recently, Bolotari authorized the entrance of 1,242 U.S. soldiers, sending a chilling signal to protesters. Citing regime change in Peru, a U.S.-trained colonel in Colombia also announced plans this May to defensorate his country's leftist president. In Africa and the Middle East, bases function as force multiplying weapons platforms for drone strikes. Since 2007, the U.S. air war in Somalia against zoom in, please. Thank you. Al-Shabaab has killed at least 90 civilians, yet the Pentagon only recognizes 5 of the victims and refuses to compensate their families. Despite claims of pinpoint accuracy, the indiscriminate precision of drone warfare escalates regional conflicts. In 2017, the U.S. mistakenly helped Nigerian officials bombard a refugee camp the government itself constructed, killing more than 160 civilians. Drones have even bombed weddings in Yemen and Afghanistan. More recently, a U.S. drone enabled France to kill members of armed terrorist groups in Bontil, Mali. Later, United Nations forces discovered the victims were members of another wedding party. U.S. policymakers invariably portray over-the-horizons capabilities such as bases and drones as a security imperative. Yet, as Solomon argues, they actually foster insecurity, alienating communities across the globe and fueling a violent feedback loop.
Thanks, Obama.
These consequences are not only invisible but enduring. This spring, Brown University published a study estimating that post-9/11 conflicts have killed more than 4.5 million people. Under U.S. sanctions, the article notes, most Afghans suffer from malnutrition and are dying from war-related causes at higher rates than ever. As U.S. veterans from the war in Afghanistan fight in Ukraine, the specter of past conflicts haunts the present. It leaves us with what Solomon calls deep scars and tragic absences, poisoned minds and shattered bodies, starving populations, and land sown with ordnance. From Afghanistan to Ukraine, the same arguments, arms, and soldiers are reaping the same results. Over 2 decades after invading the Middle East, the U.S. still advertises peace along a circular road to war.
Sounds all right.
In other words, go buy the book, y'all.
I'll wait to the movie.
I'm sure there's not going to be a movie on this. If anything, like a documentary.
How good would the movie be, though?
That's not
would be pretty good. You do it like The Big Short,
like a movie calling out the U.S. A movie about the U.S. like promoting war. No, never.
I could whisper of a dream.
You could, or unless you produce it.
Dude,
you produce it, and
someone's got to pay me. I need equipment. We're gonna have to get some travel expenses. But anyway, thanks for being here for the show, peeps.
Yeah.
What do we got coming up this week?
Before we go,
Go ahead.
Before we go, I just want to give a shout out. We probably should do this regularly, and we probably should put something in the ticker, but we've actually started getting members on the network, which is actually really nice. So basically the way members give like a set money each month.
Yep.
So in addition to super chats, that's also an option for you guys if you want to support our work. But this is like consistent finances that we get. So I do want to shout out the following people, and we'll probably put you in the ticker at some point as a thank you. And then any new members that we get, we'll probably add to it or something like that. We'll talk to Reef about and see.
Yep.
But yeah, so shout out to new members, Velvet Trance, Comrade Kitty, who's Anthony Malecki, Nicole Vance, Black Freud, and Gamer for Life _07. Thank you guys for being members. for doing more than a thing and are actually supporting us every month.
Yep.
Or at least having that willingness to. So all of you became members within the last month. So thank you guys so much for your support. But as we say, the best way and the most helpful way for you guys to support us is by sharing our stuff.
Yep.
Because the algorithm does not like us in any way. Yes, indeed, we lost Jose because his camera was heating up. So and was close to death. So he left a little early.
Yep.
But yeah,
cool.
so
we prepped for that. So we're good.
So so schedule for the week if we want to pull that up. Any updated it a bit. So we got INN News right now. We're not sure if there's going to be bread and circuses tomorrow night. I don't think there is. There may be
you may have something
happening, but check the Twitters. We'll let you guys know.
At Get Indie News on Twitter.
Yep. Friday in the afternoon, we have Angel in the afternoon, and then Tara. Do you know?
No idea who's
going to be on. Okay.
If Indy knows, and that's a confirmed thing.
Okay, so Indy said
that, but otherwise,
no bread and circus are running a new show tomorrow.
Okay.
Oh yeah, so the show is Nobody Wants to Work Anymore. So this is a show that he's doing with
Snow Himbo.
Yeah, with a friend of ours, Snow Himbo. Yep. So they had the discussion about work. So I guess they're gonna put up that conversation in place of bread and circuses tomorrow. So that's tomorrow, Friday, Angel and Tara in the afternoon, and then a replay of Boats
Sunday,
from Sunday's How Did We Miss That?
They were good.
On Friday night. Saturday we have Bitch with Misty. Sunday, new episode How Did We Miss That with Indian Reef.
10 p.m.
Politically Homeless. I don't know. Potentially, we're not sure. But if they do, Crab and Chris will do it Monday. And then No American Tradition next week, because Jesse goes bi-weekly. So he'll be back.
We'll find something though to fill it. It'll be in there. We'll put something there. But anyway, appreciate you guys, fam. Go show your support for Jose. Go follow him as well. Buy one of those posters. Do it up. Put it in your little room. Put it up on the wall.
And the link is in the description. If you, or just get it for someone you don't like.
Yeah.
And just do it. Give it as a gift.
But anyway, that's it.
Or just buy one for Jose and just rip them up. Well, you support Jose for this, and you support Crab for this. So whatever you choose to do with them, but yeah, at least show your support to Crab and Jose. So but thanks to Jose for coming on earlier. And
always
I'm tired.
kids.
I'm done.
Labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
We want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.